Welcome to Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Listeners, family, brothers in the trenches of life, come close. Hearts wide open, because today we're wrapping our arms around a story that's going to hit you right in the chest. We welcome a man who took the shattered pieces of a little boy's broken heart, abuse that stole his voice, guilt that nearly crushed his soul, and nights where he wondered if it'd ever be enough, and forged them into a blazing path of healing for thousands of fathers just like us. Please rise with me and give a heartfelt welcome to Sifu Jeremy Roadruck, the Kung Fu guy, 6th degree black belt warrior of Shaolin Wing Chun. I may have said that wrong. Proud order of Meng's martial arts, deeply devoted husband, and a loving father. Coach who's stepping into the lives of exhausted, high-achieving dads, who's been killing it at work but dying inside at home. The man who's quietly helping marriages come back from the brink in just 24 hours. Turning silent dinners and distant kids into laughter, connection, and dad, can we play? Moments again. Jeremy just didn't survive the darkness, he reached into it, pulled out the pain and turned it into pure light for the rest of us. Every ounce of that hard-won wisdom lives in his 2 powerful bestsellers. Your Best Child Ever is the game worth winning, in the book that makes parenting feel like the most joyful, winnable adventure homes of your life, and Lead Like a King, the proven roadmap to a stronger marriage. 51. There we go. Raw, real stories and practical steps that help men drop the armor, heal their homes, and finally feel loved and respected where it matters most. Jeremy, brother, we see you, we feel your weight you carried, and we're so damn grateful you're here. Welcome to the fire, my friend. Let's open our hearts and get real together.
Yeah, Jimmy, I love that intro, dude. That's tight.
At just 8 years old, right? You learned your mom had 8 miscarriages, right?
Yeah.
And only you and your brother survived.
Mm-hmm.
That guilt hit you like a freight train, right? How did carrying it, right? How did carrying that in I have to live better for them wrap your childhood self-worth? And what was the exact moment you finally laid that burden down?
So, yeah, I found out about 8 years old that my mom had TED pregnancies. And it was like, wait, what? Because I actually had some abuse outside the home at 5 and 6 years old. So by 8, I was angry. I was smoking. I was drinking coffee. I was into a bunch of stuff that you're not supposed to be at that age. And the idea that I'm here, I hate this life. I don't know why. What's the point? Yeah. And 8 other kids didn't make it.
Yeah.
And I have a lot more energy than my brother. You know, I'm much more Tigger. He's much more Charlie Brown. And so I decided I got to live for 6 of them. I don't know why, but I have to, because they're not here. They didn't get a choice. They don't get a voice. So I've got to go do something. I've got to go make something of who and what I am. Yeah. I put that burden on myself. Never talked to my parents. Never talked to anybody really about it. It was just a decision. And you think 8 years old is kind of young, but a lot of 8, 9-year-old kids are doing stuff as adults that they set in motion at that age. They were like, oh, that sounds cool. And they started moving that direction. And I was big into Taoism back then and Buddhism. And so to be tied into the Kung Fu system that I am, decades later, was like, oh, crap. There was a path there that I didn't see, but it came from those seeds. What let me put down the guilt ultimately is a process. Today, I call it a tactical integration process, but it's really walking through an integration of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt to let that stuff go. Because kids, when we're young, we don't have all the tools to explain context. We don't really understand where things are coming from, but we feel we have big passions and big commitments. And a lot of the adults around us don't see it. And so I was in my mid-30s when I got the integration and really put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And it was the first time I could ever remember since I was 4, I'm home. And I carry that here, there's a physical spot inside my body I can feel. And when I need it, I'm home. It's okay. Take a deep breath. I can access that. And I'm good. Yeah. And so I don't get stressed. I feel pressure. I don't worry, but I do have concerns. Right. And it's not that I'm playing Pollyanna positive thinking to try and push it off. No, I carry home with me, because wherever I go is where I am. I can be present here and now, which the whole heart of Kung Fu too. Because fighting, you got to be here and now. You can't know woulda, coulda, shouldas. Yeah, you got to be in this moment 100% present.
Well, and I think that's one of the biggest things in life now, right, is being present, right? I'm just learning that now at 41, after a lot of trials and tribulations of life, right? Of work. I've been lucky enough. I've been gainfully employed since I was 20 from the same career I've been in. But, I'm divorced and a couple ex-girlfriends. And so I have an ex-wife and a couple ex-girlfriends. And, it's tough, but you don't learn to come out the other side without with clarity and all that until you can, I say, take stock in your life, right? And instead of pointing fingers at others and blaming others, right?
Yeah.
You look at yourself and you say, hey, what was my responsibility in all this, right?
Yeah. Well,
And sort of man up, right?
even that word responsibility, what is my ability to respond? Right. Because a lot of the work that I do when I'm coming into a dynamic with a couple or I'm working with a guy and like I'm seeing them, they're reacting. Like when someone's reacting, that there's something in them that's activated, they're wounded, they're defending. Dude, we got to clean that up because healed people don't react, they respond.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And there's a pause in there, and that's the whole presence, because it's not stimulus response or stimulus reaction. It's stimulus pause. Now you can respond because you know how to create that time inside.
Yeah. And that for me came like, this year, right before Christmas. I was sitting there and I was like, how can I, life was going, but it was, I was going on like life's terms, right? Not on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, right, do that. And it's just the 9 to 5, right? They get up, they go through the Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah.
Go to work, come home, put up with the kids till they have to go to bed and, and then they're off to bed. And,
yeah.
But it's one of those where it's, I talk about it all the time. I lost my dad almost 17 years ago. He was 52, but I'll never forget there was 7 of us at one point in time. My cousin lived with us. My father took her in, and there was 7 of us. And then my mom and dad made it 9. But my dad never missed it. Never missed a soccer game, never missed a hockey game. My dad was everywhere, and he worked. And my dad was the breadwinner. He was always working. So, but even like, dinners, my dad would always be home at the dinner table. That was always the big thing. So my dad was always present, but then it was, when I lost him, my whole world just came crashing down, right? Of losing him. I was 26 at the time, still in my, I was doing the union work, which is still what I do now, but losing him and then my mother years later, a couple years back was tough, losing the both of them. And you almost think of like you lose the lifeline, right? No more mom and dad to solve the problems or, I just remember my dad telling me everything's going to be okay. And I literally thought that just because dad said that everything was going to be okay. It
all works out in the end eventually. If it hasn't worked out, it's not the end.
Yeah. So you endured abuse, right? At 5 in Saudi Arabia. And again, at 6 back home, right? Internalizing, I am wrong and shutting down emotions completely. Mm-hmm. Walk us through the darkest day that nearly broke you as a young man and the first martial arts lesson that taught your body it was safe to feel again.
Yeah. So 5 and 6 put me into an existential crisis. Like a lot of people in the 40s, 50s, why am I here? What's my purpose? What's my fate? What's my destiny? I had that running at 6 years old, and I can't trust anybody. I can't trust adults. I can't trust kids. So I walk into a room, my back's against the wall. I'm studying who's dominant personality. And part of me, I'm playing tic-tac-toe. If I lose, I'm going to die. Some part of me believes that. So my intensity is like way the hell up here. And all the kids are pulling back like freak. And I realized that's not safe. So I became a very good chameleon and a very good mimic of like, what do I have to do to survive this moment? Because that was my first primary game was I have to survive. And everything felt like life and death. And I didn't know why. I couldn't explain it. I could not rely on anyone or anything for my safety, unfortunately. And what really blew it open was actually a fight with my mom at 14. And just so everyone knows, in life, you either get 2 responses. You get a loving response or you get a cry for help. And if someone's not giving you a loving response, then you know they're not in a good place. And you can choose to add fuel to that fire. You can, not be in a good place yourself, and you can play diamond for diamond. And now we're both reacting and it all goes to shit fast. And so my mom asked me to do the dishes. And I'm, typical 14-year-old, like I'm not doing your dishes. And I was really mean about it. And my mom gave me a cry for help. She said, what happened to you because you were so much nicer when you were 4? And I'm 14. And the way I received that, we don't like you or want you for who you are now. We miss the 4-year-old who was compliant and did what we said the way we said, the time that we said it was so much smaller and so much not bothersome. And so she gave me a cry for help, right? Now, I see it now, not then. Then I took it as an attack. And so I replied back to, fucking killed him. Deal with it, bitch. And I walked out of the room. And I was just hot, and I went for a walk. I left the house, slammed the door, all this stuff. But as I'm storming off to the woods, like part of me is going, "What the hell was that? Who the hell? Like, dude, you know?" And it was just this anger, and it was like a splash of water and a wake up call of like, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
That's not what I am. And it began to make me start to analyze kind of how I'm showing up, how I'm acting, reacting, and then the nail on the coffin of all the negative stuff was when I started Kung Fu. I was 20, and jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, puke. That was my first class. So it was awesome. Totally out of shape, totally a bunch of crap. But about 3 months in, my teacher's teacher, so my teacher is Benny Ming, his Sifu is Grandmaster Moyat. He came for a workshop, and I couldn't make the workshop because I had to do factory work, but I came to hang out for social life. We call that Kung Fu life. And part of our Kung Fu family, what you learn on the training floor, you take into daily life because those are the battles you face more often, right? It's not violence on the street and fighting for your rights. Like, that's not the biggest battles. It's those moments of when you could say something mean or cruel. It's those moments of when you could take advantage and you don't. And so we were having social time. We were playing pool. And Grandmaster Ming heard me say something to myself about myself out loud that was destructive. And he and I have talked about it years later, and he's like, I don't remember saying that, but cool. But he looked me in the eyes, and he stopped what he was doing, and he said, don't talk to yourself like that. And he held my gaze for a moment, and then he went back to what he was doing. And the way he said it, the timing, the Kung Fu behind it, I know my parents said stuff similarly, but like the way he did it, it just hit me. And I went back to the factory where I was working, and I had all this time to sit there and think about the way I talked to myself. And it was so angry and derogatory and destructive. And I would never talk to anybody like that. So why the hell am I doing it to me? And it made me start unpacking my language patterns and figure out the source of this stuff. About 10 years later, I read a book. It's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. He lays out 5 levels of self-talk. Level 1, I can't, negative acceptance. I can't because. Level 2, recognition of need to change. I should, but I don't. So we're still in the negative place. 3, recognition of need to change. Or decision to change. I no longer, but you're still negative. And if you say to yourself 10,000 times, I never smoke, you're obsessing about smoking all day. Level 4 is the level of better you. All my habits are healthy and increase my vitality. Like, it's a different way of thinking. And I deduced a lot of that on my own in the factory. Then I read that book 10 years later and went, well, that would have been faster. But it got me to I was reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I started arguing with the book. And then when I was in the factory, I would have part of my brain running Dale Carnegie, and I would argue with him. And I'm sitting there doing my job, and in my head I'm just having these huge arguments about what's real and what's true and what's right and where's this coming from. And that was the process that really cracked my head open, because I was so angry all the time about everything, and I knew you were going to reject me at some point, so I'll just make you do it on my terms now because it's faster. Why waste time? Yeah.
And that's and that's the hard thing, right? Of you said what, 30 years old?
Yeah. Well, the factory was 20. I got the healing all the way done. Took another 15 years. So about mid-30s, 35, 36.
Yeah, and I tell everybody, one of the things when you are healing, it doesn't happen overnight. And also with it, the work has to be done. And if you're not doing the work, it's never going to happen. So
yeah,
you dropped out of college, right?
Well, if you've got a big pile of shit, cool, that's fertilizer, but it only works if you work it into the soil of your life. You got to take the fertilizer, break it open, and put it into the ground and turn it over, right? That's how it works in farming. That's how it works existentially in us.
Yeah, in life, you gotta, like you said, if you have that, it's almost, then you gotta lay it. You gotta lay it. You gotta water it. You gotta do all that good stuff. And
you gotta cultivate it.
And if you don't, you're just gonna be stuck in the same spot that you're in. So you dropped out of college, right? Worked a soul-killing sandpaper factory job, and even considered hurting yourself, right, for workers' comp just to escape.
Yeah. When you're thinking about how much money do I get for severing body parts as you're working a machine press, and you're going, well, a finger's worth how much? What about a wrist? What about a toe? How am I going to get? I'm wearing steel toe. How am I going to cut the toe off? That's a sign you should leave your job. That's just not healthy. And it wasn't the job. Just to be clear, it wasn't the job. Alley Industries, fantastic family. It was me. It was my stuff. It wasn't them. Yeah. So
what flipped the switch, right, from that rock bottom to enlisting in the Army Reserve, and how did the military chapter quietly prepare you for the real war fatherhood?
Yeah. So I was studying kung fu. So from the factory, yeah, I want to hurt myself. Like I picked up a whole bunch of scars, industrial accidents, a lot of stitches, kind of klutzy. But I realized like one of my coworkers had been there 17 years, and this was back in the 90s. So she was making like $8, $9 an hour, and she was like a shift supervisor. And I was like, dude, 17 years, and she's making barely $3 more an hour than I am. This is dumb. Like I saw the future, and the writing on the wall wasn't good because it's a low minimum skill job. Like it's not that complicated. And do I really want to be here, or am I made for more? And that's what pushed me out of that comfort zone. I knew about Ming's martial arts, so I got started in Kung Fu. Kung Fu really gave me the place to start putting myself back together. So I moved from factory work into reading meters for the power company because I got money for college, so I go to college. And that's kind of how I got going that direction. And then as I got better and better in Kung Fu, like this, I feel like a duck to water. I feel like this is where I need to be. But how do I know? And my dad was military. My grandfather was military. So I went ahead and I enlisted in the reserve for the Army. And it was really to test, like, what's my path? Like, where should I be going? Like, do I feel called to be a soldier, like, full time, and that's the life I want to live? Or is it this Kung Fu thing? Is it stay in college, get a degree in philosophy and psychology? So I tested myself. I put myself into the environment to know the realities. I went through boot camp. I went through AIT, trained combat engineer. And boot camp was easy. I mean, really, it was child's play because I had been doing Kung Fu long enough. And I was 22 when I went in instead of 18. So I was just a little more grounded, a little more capable, a little bit more mentally on the ball. And it was just a fantastic experience. And yeah, they yelled at us and we had to tighten it down, but they told you how to succeed if you just shut up and listen, right? Do your shoes this way. They're going to toss our room because they're trying to make a point. Okay, I get it. And I didn't take it personal. I knew they were there to help us be successful, but it was the accountability. It was recognizing the process so that a lot of stuff in life people take out on us. It's not us. It's whatever is going on and what it means to them. And then it's their fear or it's their whatever's not resolved. I saw that play out in the Army. I saw these kids that never really had a challenge forced to confront themselves and fold and try to take people with them because they're drowning. They're going to grab anyone they can. And it's like, so you gotta have your stuff squared away. You got to make sure you're not contributing to the problem. And that shows up in fatherhood just because of that, being accountable. And the Kung Fu side, leave room for things to exist, leave room for things to breathe. That way it's not, I'm right, do it my way, high speed, low drag. And that's the only answer because there's lots of ways to get up the hill. There's lots of ways to accomplish the task. So it kind of gave me that awareness so I could be open to what's the outcome? Take the hill. Cool. How? Lots of ways, right? What are our resources? What are their capability? Who's on the team? What can they make happen? So when we did like small unit exercises, there's a lot of that assessment of who do we have and what can we do? Because you get some guys, they're not climbing. Other guys are like monkeys and they're up in the trees quick. Cool. Different way to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your mother, right? Your mother had a devastating ice fall injury in 2007, right? Sparked your falling safely classes for seniors.
Yeah.
Looking back, what was the first time you realized your personal pain could become someone else's protection? And how has that principle guided every program you've built since?
Yeah. Well, my mom falling was like, she should have known how to fall. Like she slipped on ice and smashed her head. She was trying to keep my grandmother safe, and my grandmother is in her 90s. So I get it. But why didn't my mom know? Well, I never taught her. Well, why didn't I ever teach her? Why did I ever think about that? Like, because, I work with families, I work with kids. I do sexual violence prevention. I do a variety of different things in the community. And I'd never thought about our seniors, but it's like, oh, it's not the fall that's the problem. Complications of the fall. Go to the hospital. You're not moving. Now you get pneumonia. And a lot of our seniors, a lot of our elders die of pneumonia in the hospital because they're just not moving. Their lungs fill with fluid. So we got to stay up. We got to stay active. And so very early in my Kung Fu career, as I worked with the problem kids real well because I was a problem kid. So I didn't come
right
at
in
adults. Yeah, well, I mean, I get it. The thing is, the world's been around longer. It's probably going to win. So fighting everyone all the time, it's kind of exhausting. Yeah. But if I say that, like, screw you, old man, what do you know? And so I had a way of working with the problem kids that I treated them like they were intelligent and capable. And I just had a slightly different perspective that caught their attention. I treated them with respect. I treated them like they were intelligent and capable, which they weren't used to because they're used to adults judging them, pushing them, punishing them. I didn't punish. I let natural consequences. You do dumb stuff, you're going to get punched in the head. It's fine. Maybe you should keep your hands up. I'm not saying you have to, but if you don't like getting hit in the head, probably should protect yourself a little bit better.
Yeah.
Right? It's not because they did anything right. It's because you did something wrong. You had a hole in your structure. We got to fix that. And so that, right, being able to pick up on those things and bridge. So I'm at a place now, anything I understand, I can teach to pretty much anyone because I can figure out their context and I can take my stuff and put it into their world in a way that they can progress with it instead of forcing them to have to come join me where I'm at. And that's the only answer. And that's really the shift. So when the reality of my mom fell and hit her head, like we sat around for like 2 weeks because we were worried and what's going to happen. And there was a lot of stuff. But very quickly, it's like, this is not what I do. I'm a problem solver. What happened? So I developed the Falling Safely workshop because falling, you don't have to have a high level of skill to fall safely. Like it helps if you are in great shape, but get low to the ground, round your body. These are things anyone can do. And so I've taught that workshop to 3 to 94, like just massive different ranges of ages. The secret is if you're going to fall, like roll with it if you can and get yourself as low as you can, as fast as you can, because hitting the ground from a couple inches away hurts a whole lot less than standing up. And for the elders in the room, get on the floor with your grandkids and play. Because if you're not used to going to the ground and you start to fall, you tense up and resist because you're just not used to being there.
Yeah.
But if you sit on the floor on a regular basis, just roll around. It's not a big deal anymore. It's engage with the stuff you're scared of. It suddenly becomes a whole lot less scary.
Yeah, and I think, the big thing you said is, making sure they, get down, roll with the kids, play with the kids, because I think oftentimes as people get older, right, they get stuck in their little, their little bubbles where they, usually family comes, takes care of them, gives them their coffee in the morning, their lunch in the afternoon, their dinner at night, right?
Yeah.
And, not forcing them to get up if they obviously can't, but, if they're able to, not,
go play.
Go play, go for a walk, go to the park, and just get out and about. And I think that's for everybody from kids to those in their later years, right? If you can still get up and walk, get out and do it, because moving and getting that body moving, getting that body, the heart racing, if you can.
Yeah.
It feels great once you're
feels good.
Once you're
we have a body, use it or lose it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
There's a story from one of the Taoist masters talking about that exact thing, how people get more and more rigid as they get older. And he's like, but the soft always wins. I'm so old, the teeth have rotted out of my head, but I still have my tongue. Right? So it's like, don't take yourself so seriously. We're all going to die. Life is a death sentence. And that's part of the Shaolin tradition, is accepting that first. Suddenly a lot of stuff becomes less scary because it's like, well, are you going to die if it goes wrong? Well, no. Okay. Then take the shot. Why not? Why not?
So true. So you've been married, right? And raising 2 kids.
Yep.
While running schools and coaching full-time. What was the single most painful failure in your own marriage or parenting that forced you to scrap the old tough guy playbook and invent the lead like a king framework?
So there's a question I ask my clients, or before someone becomes my client. And it's not always an easy question, but it's, do you want to be right or do you want to get results? And well, they want results. Cool. But then they want to give me a litany of all the things they've done. And I'm like, awesome. Thanks for the list. How's that working? Crickets. Because if it was working, you'd be getting your result, and it's not working. Cool. So when would now be a good time to stop? And that has been, my wife has been patient with me because, I've got a fair amount of experience about a fair amount of things, and I can get caught in that steamroll. And she's very good at, but are they keeping up? But are they having fun? And the big magic question for everything, how can I enjoy the process? Because if you add that to your goals, if you add that to your day, good, bad, or sideways, whatever's going on, you can always choose your attitude about it once you have awareness of your attitude. And just ask yourself, if this is bullshit, I hate this, I don't want to deal with it. Cool. Well, how can you enjoy this process? That changes how you show up. It doesn't change the time and space, right? It doesn't change the reality of the moment, but it changes your energy in that moment. And so part of my life, I'm trained as a master hypnotherapist, and we listen for the words. But then we get to define the words. So you can say, I'm angry, which is fine. You'll show up a certain way, but you can also go, I'm curious. And you can say it the same way you would say, I'm angry. I'm curious. I'm so freaking curious, kid. Help me understand, because I'm obviously confused. But if you start using those words, the words don't really match the emotion. So it starts to break patterns. It starts to break games. It starts to break our nervous system apart, make it open. We can flow. We can relax. We can, I'm so tinkled. I'm peeved. Make up little words that aren't what you would usually use to describe how you feel. And all of a sudden, you start feeling different. There's 3,000 words for emotion in the English language. Most people use less than 20. So start
Crazy.
becoming more, become more curious, become more, more open to the conversation and find more playful ways to say things. Be flummoxed instead of confused.
Yeah. And I think a lot of
My daughter was 6 and she'd wear a shirt. Oh, this tag, it's ailing me. It's ailing me. And I was like, oh my God, that's my kid.
And I think too many parents, whether it's the mom or dad, right, come home and they just want to put the kids down. The new way is put an iPad in front of them or a tablet in front of them, right, and let them enjoy it. But it's like, no, take them out, go for a walk, ask them how their day was, sit there, do some homework with them, right, engage.
Yeah,
but also
you only got
enjoy
18 years, and then they have their whole lives to be adults and out of your life. So you have 18 years to enjoy, if you're lucky. Because I have had clients whose kids didn't make it even 18 years, whether by their own hand or accident or happenstance.
So in your best child ever, right, you say parenting is 37,000 plus hours of games you can actually win.
Yeah.
What's one game most dads are losing right now without knowing it? And what's the exact 3-step fix you give them that turns resentment into roaring connection?
Man, okay. I got to think on that one for a second. Ask me the question again.
So in your best child ever, right, you say parenting is 37,000 plus hours of games you can actually win. What's one game most dads are losing right now without knowing it? And what's the exact 3-step fix you give them that turns resentment into roaring connection?
Yeah. This one's for the dads with teens or preteens, right? It is the self-discipline game, right? I'm in a ton of dad groups and I'm in there adding commentary, not trying to pitch, just like trying to expand awareness. And I get the question all the time, or I see the question all the time, how do I discipline my kid? And I'm like, oh, you mean punish?
Yeah.
Right? Because discipline is a skill. It's not an act. So that's the first thing is we have to understand self-discipline is when I tell me to do what I am supposed to do, no matter if I like it or not. It is a skill. Punishment is forcing people into compliance, right? For non-compliance, non-performance. So understand when you say, how do I discipline my kid? You usually mean, how do I punish my kid? Discipline is get it done because that's who we are, because it's intrinsic, it's inside, right? False discipline, I need mom and dad to tell me what to do, or my job, or prison, right? But if you live with that external drive, you're going to be at the effect, you're going to be the employee your whole life. Not that being an employee is wrong, but you're just going to be in that place of you're always chasing versus you're the one who's acting. We call it living at cause. So the first step is define the term discipline versus punishment, right? The second one is it's embedded in the definition. Self-discipline is when I tell me to do what I'm supposed to do, no matter if I like it or not. And the key word in that whole definition is supposed to, right? Because supposed to presupposes that your kid knows what's supposed to happen, knows the way that it's supposed to happen, and they even care about getting it done. Just because this is a priority to you doesn't mean shit to your kids. That's why we use pain and punishment to make it important to them versus how do you align vision and values? Well, I got to know what my kid cares about. So before we talk self-discipline, which is number 4, we talk respect, which is when I show that I care, doing things and treating things with positive energy. So what are you doing to show your kids you care? And what are you doing to help them understand why caring about certain things done a certain way is a priority or is important? Why do we have to brush our teeth this way? Why do we have to keep our room clean this way? And it's giving them those understandings of how it makes life easier for them, easier for others, how it makes things safer for them, safer for others. We as dads have to think about, it's not just shut up and do it because I said so, and you'll figure it out later, and it'll become obvious later, because then you're setting up a crash all the time, right? So first step, discipline versus punishment. Second step is supposed to, comes from what they care about, which is the step before. So you have to understand, or you have to know or be aware of what are the things your kid cares about. And that is a moving target, because when they're 5 and 6, there's certain things they care about. 7, 8 changes, 9, 10 changes, 10 to 12, massive changes, 13, 15, huge changes, 16, 17, 18. Those are all different milestones and different things. You have a different human being in front of you, right? And so then the third step really is about how to create rapport. Mutual liking requires we kill the desire or need to judge. The instant you judge someone, you kill rapport. Because you and I both know what it feels like to have somebody tell us what to do, and they think we're the most ignorant, pig-headed baboon on the planet, and we're so stupid, and you should just, and whatever they tell us, they could be 100% right, but as soon as they turn around, not doing that shit.
Yeah.
Because I don't care. because the rapport is gone. So we have to become influential leaders of our teens because you cannot push a rope. You have to pull, which means compelling vision, understanding values, aligning values, and we not rapport, or I'm sorry, not judgment. We evaluate. And so the key here would be curious. That third step is just being curious to like, well, where's that coming from? Not why questions, focus on what's and how's. Well, that's really interesting. Walk me through how you arrived at that course of action. I'm interested to hear what you were thinking through. Or was there something you maybe missed? And just doing that, you begin to open the frame and you begin to create future goals and future bandwidth to work. We call it an open loop. Instead of a closed loop, it's like, oh, I did this thing and it's done. It's compartmentalized. It's over. It's finished. But with our kids, then we're forcing them that we have to keep carrying them all the time. Right? So it's that, how do I open this frame? How do I open this conversation and keep it open? And for a lot of dads, they don't know because they never had it demonstrated in a personal setting. So you can look at a lot of your business team stuff and your business leadership type training can actually begin to apply in your family. In my Kung Fu program, we had some of our 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds were reading master's degree level leadership books. And so I had dads that were like, I'm just reading this now in my 40s and my kids being raised in it at 9.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, because you give these kids this as a foundation, and influential versus positional leadership, massive difference in life.
So you teach, right? Trade expectation for appreciation. But when your own kids were little and testing every boundary, how many times did you have to swallow your ego and apply that rule to yourself before it stopped feeling like weakness and started feeling like power?
Yeah, no, it was from the rip because I had that practice with the Kung Fu kids. So then when I got my own kids, it was like, dude, thank you. This is such a different way of doing it than I thought about, right? Rather than how I expected or anticipated. It's different than what I thought. Thanks. I'm glad to be here, right? And it's because I had the Kung Fu school that gave me the opportunity, because I wrote Your Best Child Ever 2012, and I didn't meet my wife until 2013. My daughter wasn't born until 2014. So I had written the book and put a money back guarantee on it before I wrote, because no kids, not married, not dating. Who the hell's going to listen to me? But I had 17 and a half years of working with people. And so that's why I put the guarantee, is because try to break my games.
Yeah. So the tactical integration protocol you created releases decade of stored anger in minutes. Walk us through a real client moment if you can, maybe a high-earning dad on the verge of divorce where you watched that protocol crack open a man who hadn't cried since he was a boy.
Yeah, well, he didn't cry, but I have a guy that we just did this 2 weeks ago, and we just talked about next steps this morning. We released lifelong anger. Right. He's been carrying it. And so like we did the anger release, and it's like, cool, how you feeling? And he just smiles. He's like,
couldn't believe
he's
it.
literally never felt this in his nervous system in his life, but the tension is gone. And he's got one of those biometric rings. His heart rate, resting heart rate is down. Variable heart rate is up. Like all of his biomarkers the last 2 weeks have just been getting better and better. He realized he's not sucking in his stomach and holding it in tense all day long. Because like his day starts here, and then by the end of the day, he's exhausted because he's just constantly carrying. Last 2 weeks, he hasn't been. And it's like, how do you feel? He's like, dude, like he can't put it into words because literally he's in his late 40s. He's never lived like this. Literally 4 decades. He's never felt totally relaxed, right? And it's like, and because I went through to explain kind of how it works, and he's got a lot of complexity in his life. His mother passed away. He's got family suing the estate. He's got an intimate relationship that's taking more out of him, processing grief over his mom. Like he's carrying a lot of stuff, and people are just adding to his plate. And we got to talking, and I was just like, well, would it be okay if I took something off? And I offered him this experience. And he's like, well, I've done like da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, this is not like any of that stuff. And I guarantee the transformation. And he's like, well, that's a big thing to say. And I was like, well, it's not money back guarantee. It's I'll work with him until we get resolution, because the fact you're aware and you're ready to let it go, we can do this. And in a way that doesn't get you back in your stuff, because he didn't have to tell me anything. He didn't have to tell me what the issues were, what the cause was, what the lessons he learned was to be able to let it go. I didn't need to know any of that stuff. If he wants to tell me, fine, I'll listen, I'll share, I'll be a participant, but it's not necessary. And so it's like, there are processes that do something similar, but there's a risk of reassociating people into the stuff caused the issue in the first place. And the way I do it, we don't get back into it. And I've got I've got 6 different ways that we can disassociate from that experience. And 6 is, there's a lot more, but we can pull you out of it and put distance in. Eventually we could even delete stuff. And so he's at the point now, he can go back into his memories and he can remember stuff that he used to be angry about. He can remember the anger in his memory, but he can't feel it now.
Yeah.
And there's no sadness, no fear, no hurt, no guilt. He can't feel it because, well, I wasn't wrong to feel it I felt it for a real reason, but I don't need to live there anymore. I got what I needed to be able to let it go. And it's the weirdest thing. And he's had a couple people comment, he's carrying himself differently. He literally feels different because he's centered and he's in himself a little more. And he's like broader, but more relaxed.
That must feel good as a coach.
Oh, it's the coolest shit. Like, it's my favorite thing to do for people. That's why I put the money back guarantee on, or not money back. I put the guarantee on it because just trust me with the damn process. And, he was like worried. I'm like, look, just do half down. And when we get your result, do the other half. And he's like, all right, I'll take the shot. And then we did it. And then he was like, oh my God.
So your book, right? Lead Like a King is built on 51 raw case studies of men who were successful everywhere except at home.
Yep.
What's the darkest secret you've heard from a client that made you realize even kings sometimes need to burn the old throne down before they can build back a better one?
Well, it's actually, you don't need to burn it down, right? That's actually the secret, because it's like, oh, you got to kill the boy for the man. It's like, no, you don't kill the boy, because the boy is where all your playfulness comes from and your creativity and your joy. And if you kill him, that's not a good place to live. It doesn't make you safe inside, right? It's nurture the boy, lead like a king, or master the man, lead like a king. Because the boy is all of our playfulness, all of our games. Attached, we get into fault and blame and guilt and shame and finger pointing and self-sabotage. That's all inner child integration stuff.
Yeah.
Once we get the kids we're able to take ownership. We're able to start responding instead of reacting. That's how that inner child is like, I'm safe to play again. A lot of men's work doesn't do this inner child piece first. And so they talk a lot about power and strength and discipline and dominance. You got to control, you got to... And the little kid inside is like terrified, because like the guys are trying to make themselves so big and strong, no one can ever hurt them again, which is good for them as a man. But what does that do for your inner child? What does that do for your wife? What does that do for your kids? Do they feel safe because you're so rock hard, right? My wife and I were talking one time and she's like, I don't ever want you to get super jacked because I like to lay on you and you're comfortable.
Yeah.
And I ran earlier this year, I ran the Dopey Challenge, which is a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, a full marathon in 4 days. That was fun. But I didn't get my body rock hard because I don't care about that. My wife likes to have something to hug and hold on to. Cool. We're good with that. But it's make it safe for the boy, because then it's safe for our kids. It's safe for our wife to they can relax, they can trust. Not, dad's this hair trigger and he's got his EDC bag and he's like looking around. And he's always on guard and he's always ready to. It's like, dude, breathe a second. You can be aware but not on guard. It serves you better in the long run. Because if you're running in yellow all the time, you're also exhausted all the time. And so you can be green, aware, then you hear something, go to yellow and be like, oh, suspicion, and then go orange when you have confirmation of threat, and then go red when you're actually in a distance to do something about the threat. But if you're not, there's no point running red line when you're too far away, when you're not in a position to influence or impact. That's when you get the hell out. And so we can use these threat colors to kind of gear up our intensities, versus if we're not aware of it, we're just running around all the time. So yeah, but the deepest, darkest, the hardest case I've had to work, or had the opportunity to work, was a father, and it's not something I lead with much, but it was a father whose younger child was hit by a car while they were walking, and he was holding that child's hand. A senior citizen had lost control of a vehicle and jumped a curb and hit the child and died while he was holding on. And he's got a wife and another child at home. And so he can't kill himself, but he doesn't deserve to live. And putting him back together was mission critical, because he was destroyed. And dude. But the thing was, we began to open that up and pivot it, because I asked questions, because I don't know the answers. But do you think maybe she was here to teach something and experience something, and maybe she accomplished that? And if we switch roles and she was holding your hand and you got hit, how would she process that for the rest of her life?
Yeah.
Versus how you are processing it right now in your life. And that activated something in him, because no child should ever have to watch their parent. I'm like, okay. So there's somewhere we can begin to build from, right?
That must be one of the hardest ones to do.
It was. And I had to pull back. I had to activate his faith because he was mad at God, and I don't blame him in the slightest. But part of that, if you believe on the other side, it's all good, and we go back to source and we go back to love and unconditional, then she's not gone. She's just ahead and around the corner. And you guys are going to catch up at some point and understand what happened. But if you stay stuck on the question of why, you are going to destroy yourself, and you're never going to let this go, and you're never going to have a satisfactory answer. Because why questions drive us into our stories, and why will spin and keep us stuck. Because we have to know a what and a how. That's what the games are built out of. Games are what you do and how you do it. The why, the motivation, that's the story. On a certain level, the story doesn't matter, except how it affects the game, because the game is what impacts other people's lives. Whatever you think and feel in your own head, your own heart, it's your business until you take action, because then the action impacts the world. And so that's really the crux of what I do is really start to get into that. The story you're telling, which is all stories are true. Only some of them actually happened. But that story you're telling is what drives the game you play. And if you believe you deserve to be punished, then that game will punish you. And if you believe, that you can never be free of whatever, if that's your story, then your game will never let you be free.
Forever spinning.
Yeah. Well, I talked to a lady who was going through some stuff, and she consciously gets it, but she's not ready to let go of the pain. She's like, I haven't paid enough for this yet to let it go. And I'm like, well, if you want, I can 10x my price and you can just pay me and call that the spiritual debt. And then if that works for you, it didn't. I just had to offer it because, like, why not?
Why not? Exactly.
I'm poking at her paradigm. It's not about I charge a certain amount, right? Because the money's immaterial. It's what's required as a structure for the transformation to be committed. But it was she believes, she feels, she knows that 50 years from now, she could be fine with it, but I'm not ready. I have to walk those steps, and I have to carry that pain. Okay. Well, I respect you for the journey that you're on, and just know that if it ever gets to be too much, you start to have really negative thoughts, 988 in the United States. And you can always call me we can move this along.
Yeah. So two more questions, right? So you've competed nationally and internationally in Kung Fu.
Yes,
How is stepping onto the mat with someone who can literally kick your butt faster than you can think taught you lessons about humility and leadership that no boardroom or therapy coach ever could?
I got used to fighting people lead to lead. So if you put your right side forward, I put my left side forward. If you put your left side forward, I put my right side forward. So I'm just going to mirror you. We call that open facing or edge, fighting on the edge. And I got used to that. And I really enjoy, I like that because it's a good counter fight. A lot of people don't face that. And I fought this guy, and he would switch. And so I would switch, and then he would switch, and then I would switch. Then he would switch, damn it. And then I would switch. And he would switch, damn it. And because he was playing across strategies, playing close, so lead to lead. And I had not trained enough on lead to lead. I got so comfortable with open facing versus close. I lost because I was thinking. And I was just laughing as I'm losing. I didn't give up. I didn't just roll over and take it. But it was just like, I'm a half a beat slow. My timing is it was such a great lesson in just, hey, numbnut, be prepared for everything. Don't get so caught up in your bias, And it was awesome. And then there was this guy I fought down actually in Clearwater. I'm over in Orlando now, but in Clearwater, so just a couple of miles from here, basically an hour. He had been in a match prior to mine and got his nose bloodied. And the rules of that competition, if you draw blood on your opponent, you get disqualified. So he won that round. He comes forward. So he and I are going, and our skill was super, super close. And it was fun because we were beating the crap out of each other. We're both getting shots in. We're both blocking stuff. We're giggling. And then I just went, he ducked and I just went across his nose and drew blood. So I lost by technicality, but it was the best fight ever. And it was so much, it was joyous because we're just pummeling the crap out of it because it's not personal. We're not mad. We're just pushing ourselves to our limits. And it was all stand up stuff. So it's punches and kicks. And it was so much fun. And it's the thing you got to remember, engage with the stuff, right? So many people get in their ivory tower and so many people get in their theories and their woulds and their coulds and their shoulds. It's get back on the floor, guys. I've been training with my teacher now 31 years. And when I go back for instructor training and they're like, hey, we need a volunteer, I'm one of the first people up. I give the younger kids a second and then boom, I'm right up there. We had a sparring training one time and I'm now in my 50s. I was in my late 40s and a couple of guys in their 20s. And I know my angles better than they do. And so I went through the sparring team and I went through guy after guy after guy after guy, no rest for half an hour, just ran them because I knew the angles and just let them They're trying so hard, and then you just cut the angle on them. And they just walk into your fist, and you're not really working hard. You're just like boink, boink, watching them get irritated because they're just so open. And Grandmaster Ming was in the room, and he's like, "Hi, Jeremy. So you're still seeing who's an older kung fu brother?" So it's like those are fun. Engage, guys. Play. Don't take it so serious. Again, we're all gonna die. Get over it.
Yeah. So if the 20-year-old factory worker Jeremy, right, could sit across from the Sifu and dad he is now, what would the old you need to hear to believe that turning all that guilt and pain into this movement was actually possible? And what would you tell every listener carrying the same invisible weight right now?
What would I say to 20-year-old me? Yeah, don't be such a dick. You're much more likable than you allow. Like seriously, there's so much more good stuff in you than you let people see or know because you reject it and make it wrong. You're a damn force, dude. You're a force of nature. And if you stopped hamstringing yourself because of you need to punish yourself, there's so much that could happen so much faster. The only one holding you back is you, and it's your BS. It's your belief system. It's your need, right? Yeah. If you can realize that, take a deep breath, own it, right? Yeah. The process I have now, awareness is the first step. If you're not aware of something, you cannot do anything about it. But once you're aware, the second step is you have to accept it. Doesn't mean you agree with it, doesn't mean you like it, but the reality is the reality. If you're falling, you accept the fact you're falling. Then you have the power to guide and influence and control what happens next. As long as you refuse to accept it, you have no power to change it. So you have to accept it. And then the third step, how can you appreciate it? And appreciate it, two types. Gratitude, appreciate, like, thanks for the new awareness, thanks for the understanding, thanks for telling me, thanks for whatever. But also appreciate, like, I can relate, because that's what builds rapport, that's what builds influence. It's like, oh, I can't say I know exactly, but I've been somewhere similar.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. And so then once you have those three in place, now you can begin to take ownership. And when you own your impact, good, bad, or sideways, that's where the power and the responsibility, which is the ability to respond, that's when it shows up. It will not be there. You cannot be responsible until you take ownership, right? I see guys all the time and they're like, oh, but I didn't mean it that way. But I didn't like stop justifying. It doesn't matter what you meant. What they received is the only thing you calibrate on, because that's the reality for them. Do you want to be right or do you want to get results? Get the result. Cool. Calibrate off of what they're telling you, not what you meant. That's your business. What they receive, that's what you have to go with.
That's what you have to go with, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, brother, from one survivor who knows what it feels like to carry the world on a bruised heart to another, thank you. You didn't just survive the fire, you became the light that shows other men how to walk through it and come out leading with love. You've reminded every dad listening that the strongest thing a man can do is trade his armor for presence, his expectations for appreciation, and his old story for a legacy his kids will run toward. Listeners, let Jeremy's words land deep in your chest right now. You were born to lead your family like a king. The pain, the guilt, the burnout, you don't have to carry it anymore. So listeners, here's your call to action today. Go grab both of Jeremy's books right now. Your Best Child Ever and Lead Like a King. Head over to leadlikeaking.com, take his free 2-minute quiz, and apply for coaching if you're ready to stop walking on eggshells at home. Share this episode with one dad who needs to hear this message. Take that first step. Your wife, your kids, and your legacy are waiting. Jeremy, may your marriage stay strong, your children keep shining, and your work continue to transform families across the country. You are changing bloodlines, brother. This is Uncle Jimmy, hot wide open, spirit on fire, thanking you for showing us what real king energy looks like. To every listener, the other side of your pain is power. Answer the call. Lead like a king. Love like a warrior. Until next time, family, stay strong, stay present, and keep building the legacy your kids will be proud of. We'll see you next time. Hot, full, and fire lit. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
Pleasure. Thank you, Uncle Jimmy. You rock.